Hey there, it's Zack, and this is the Bricks in Story podcast. Thank you for joining me. I'm a real estate agent in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, and I really am excited about today's episode and my first episode ever on this podcast. And this podcast is really going to be about going over the uniqueness of the architecture and the stories about the city, this history here, and not just this city, but architectural styles and where they came from, how they've developed, how the country has been impacted by them. I just wanted to really express how much fun my job is. And one of the coolest parts of my job is that every house has a story. I don't know how many times I've walked into a home and instead of seeing just like, oh, that's a house, it's a house with an addition and changes and goofy stuff throughout it. It's really, really, really neat to see. And sometimes I may be talking about a neighborhood or an architectural style, like we're going to do today. Other times it may be literally one house that I go into the history of. If we've got a couple of really great historical homes in the area, and diving into some of that is a lot of fun. There's a lot of really great history around the architecture in this area, as well as the areas all over the country that are similar to this. So I originated from Houston, Texas, and one thing I can say, we do have some old buildings in Texas, obviously, but for the most part in Houston, most stuff gets flooded and wiped away. So you start to lose some of the charm that an area gets because those houses are getting torn down, pulled out, rebuilt, and they're modern. It's constantly upgrading to the most modern thing. And one of the things that made me fall in love with Cincinnati when I moved here was that there wasn't a lot of that going on. There were some, we had some kind of like Mount Adams had some like mudslide kind of stuff happening and the hillside just dropping out. But for the most part, the homes here have a really great history. I've got a handful of friends that live in these historical districts, have historical homes, and it is one of my favorite things to do, go over there. It is a real estate podcast, so absolutely we're going to do some stuff about the current market and get into the ins and outs of processes of buying and selling homes. We'll get into that, but that's really not the main focal point here. The main focal point is going to be kind of highlighting these amazing areas we have around here, the amazing homes, and some of these architectural styles. So I appreciate you joining in. I'm really excited about today's episode. I think that you're going to be pretty excited about it too. All right. So today's episode, we're going to talk about one of the most practical and approachable and underrated home styles out there. In fact, I've been with a few clients that absolutely refused to get this kind of home because it was so prevalent. They felt like it was the only thing they ever looked at, and that's the bi-level. So the bi-level is one of my favorite designs out there. It is especially great for first-time home buyers or first-time investors alike. It's got so much versatility, affordability. It's a really, really fantastic home style to get into and grow. And just because of the versatility and the flexibility of that lower living space, I think it's a house that anybody can move into at any point in their life and find some comfort in the space they need. So let's get into it. So let's start off with what a bi-level home is. If you've ever walked into a home and immediately been greeted with a staircase right at the entryway, with a set of stairs going up and another one going down, you've been in a bi-level, sometimes also called a split entry. This design is all about maximizing space. The upper level is typically going to be your main living areas. It's going to be your dining room, bathroom, kitchen, living room, and your bedrooms. Whereas the downstairs is going to be a big flex space usually. It's usually one large flex space room. Sometimes it's a walkout basement. Usually there's a bathroom, whether a half bath or a full bath down there. Your laundry, HVAC, hot water, that's all going to be down there in a utility room. You're usually going to have some pretty good under the stairs storage, as well as possibly a garage attached to it. It just depends. A lot of times if there's not a garage built into under the main footprint of the home, there will be a garage to the side of it that you can still access through one of the two. One of the coolest things about this layout is how it separates the public and private spaces. The upper level is often where families are going to spend time together or entertain. The lower level, though, it can be used to kind of provide a quieter, more private area, or you can move all the commotion down there. You can put all the kids stuff down there. You can put your office stuff down there. It's just so flexible. So it really is ideal for growing families or even multi-generational living. So how did the bi-level become so popular? The answer to that, we need to look back at the mid 20th century, right after World War II. There was a post-war era that had a ton of change in the United States. Soldiers were coming home, economy was booming, families were growing, and this created a massive, massive, massive demand for housing, especially in the suburbs, which were a growing territory at that point. So the challenge was really finding a way to build really affordable, functional homes, on smaller lots. So the builders and architects, they really needed a design that maximized living space without breaking the bank, and being able to put that on that footprint did it. So the bi-level home came in. The footprint was small and compact, offered more usable space, and quite honestly, in my opinion, a bi-level is one of the most efficient uses of space. The bi-level has such a unique way of being efficient. It's hard to argue. I have walked into 1,500 square foot ranches that just waste space, and I've walked into 1,500 square foot bi-levels that just seem to hold everything so well. So the design was perfect for the era's focus on family life without creating the expense of building a full 2-story home. The design was great. The upper level was a cozy communal space, meals, relaxing. Lower level gave kids a really good place to play, or teenagers a hangout spot. By the 60s and 70s, the bi-level homes were everywhere. They really became a defining feature of suburban America. They popped up coast to coast. It's not just here. And I know in Cincinnati, a lot of people here are just like, man, there's so many of them. And there really were, but it was like that everywhere. Everywhere had them. Now, I'll say, coming from the South, I didn't see them as often down there as I see them up here. But it also is a lot of that. Things came in, wiped out buildings, and then they built back up. It's really became a popular home style. In fact, you could say it was the epitome of like modern family living at the time. It was really a great house, and it shaped America in a way that I don't think many other homes have, especially in that 20th century, the mid 20th century area, because it allowed us to grow as a country. It allowed people to spread out. It allowed for commerce to boom out into the suburbs, because we were able to put so many people out there, so many families out there, because of affordable design like this. So now, as a real estate agent, it is one of the most common questions I get on this, especially from first-time home buyers, is like, what's the best type of home for someone like me? And honestly, like, the first-time home buyer, this is the holy grail of good, affordable, well-built homes. It still to this day is an affordable and efficient home for a growing family, or even like, I'm a single dad, and if I didn't have my kids, I would still love these homes, because there's so much I could do with that bottom space. I got 2 kids right now. My teenager would have that bottom floor. That would be his floor, right? Out of sight, out of mind. His mess would stay down there, and he could essentially live down there. I put a little kitchenette down there. He could live down there. Now, if I wanted to turn it into a game room, playroom, and then keep the upstairs bedrooms just for that, just for sleep, just to kind of separate that, that's fine. But let's take my boys out of the picture. Let's take my 5-year-old, 13-year-old, say, hey, look, we're not going to put toys or anything down there. I've got an office space upstairs. I've got a guest room. If I have a buddy come over, they can stay the night. I've got my primary suite. And then downstairs, what do I have? Well, that's cool. I've got a really great little bourbon bar right there, right? I've got a bourbon bar, walkout patio area there. It's a great little spot to have it. I put a little bourbon bar in there, a pool table. You do a flat screen TV, make it like a sports bar. You could do whatever you want. Crafting area. Me, I'd probably turn it into some type of podcast studio or YouTube place. It really does lend itself to being extremely flexible for whoever lives in the home. You're a more mature family. You've got some teenagers that are moving out of the house, but now mom or dad needs to come stay with you, but they don't want to go up and downstairs. Cool. You know, it's attached right to that garage, that bottom level. You can have them come in and live down on that bottom level. You can put a little kitchenette in there. You can help, you can do whatever you want and make it a livable thing. I've seen people turn that into the primary bedroom for the home. And I always thought that was a really cool way to do it. I've had some buyers that when they were looking and they were primarily looking at buy levels, that was one of the homes that they were looking at. And I think it was a phenomenal way for them to get that kind of large living space for a primary suite downstairs and then still have all of that living upstairs. So it worked out really well. They're affordable because of that efficient design. They often cost less than most other home types to remodel or renovate or even just to maintain because they're small, efficiently built homes. Your HVAC is going to be easier to maintain. It's very straightforward. Looking at a home that is a really great entry point for home ownership on all levels, not just the initial cost to get into it, but the cost to keep up with it. If that roof goes bad, it's a simple roof to rebuild. There's not all kinds of crazy angles. It's just simple pitched roof that is going to be a lot more cost efficient to repair and replace than another style home would be. They're incredibly versatile. Maintenance is phenomenal. And they're just incredibly efficient and affordable. The space in those homes is so great. And I can put families of 6, 8 in there. I can put a single person in there and they're all happy with it. Everyone that I've sold a buy level to has loved it. They've been extremely happy with it. But one of the other things I think that is so great about buy levels is, I do a lot with new construction as well. And with new construction, you still have a lot of questions up in the air of what's going to happen with this neighborhood, right? You don't have that with a buy level. These were all homes that were built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And those neighborhoods have been there for a long time. They're mature. You've got mature trees. You've got neighbors that have been there since the beginning of time. And you've really got great HOAs in place. You've got some really great stuff. Really good reasons to go into some of these neighborhoods because they've been around. They've been handling these situations, the HOA situations. They've got it all done. They've got it. They're not trying to figure anything out anymore. It's done. They've got it. It's a great area. And you've got that mature neighborhood. With a mature neighborhood usually comes some closer businesses as well. The neighborhood's been out somewhere any amount of time, you're going to start getting businesses that build up around it. You're going to have you're not going to be driving in crazy amount of miles to get to a grocery store, post office, things like that. You're usually going to have some more established businesses around that area as well. So we look at suburbs now that have been around for 30, 40 years. I mean, if I would be hard pressed to find one that didn't have a grocery store within 5 minutes of it. So yeah, that's one of the better things I think, as far as why I think it makes it such a great first time purchase, because you get so much out of that one home. The next question really becomes, what happened? Why did we stop doing them? If they're so great, they're so affordable, why did they stop doing them? Well, and that's really more about the trends that started happening in the 80s and 90s. Is we really got into this open concept, open floor plan kind of idea. And people really just wanted larger, more luxurious homes. They didn't mind going to a bigger footprint. Resources weren't, they weren't scarce. They were looking for slightly bigger lots of land. They wanted a little bit more space. And so you kind of got into this luxurious spaces building. And then the people that were coming into with those more economic homes were typically going into a more luxurious styled ranch home, or they were just purchasing a resale home. So the buy levels, they fell out of favor for a while, but I would say over the past 4 or 5 years that I've been sitting here doing this, I've sold quite a few of them, and they're really making a resurgence. I've walked into a lot of these bi-level homes that have been modernized. They've created some open-ish spaces around the main living area on the first floor, or on the top floor. They've really geared them towards entertaining, putting extra patio space in the back of the home, and really you can update these things, smart homes, stuff like that. They're incredibly efficient. You can keep your bills down. I've seen solar panels popped on top of these things. They're really making a comeback because of their practicality. I think we, as a nation, and maybe generationally, we're moving away from this idea that we need all this luxury stuff, and we're kind of going back to function over form. And so that's why the bi-levels, it is making a resurgence. It's kind of stepped into a space of its own as a efficient home and a great option, because it's still, most of the ones I show are in that 175 to 250, 275 range, and they're really phenomenal. And quite honestly, the legacy of bi-level homes is going to go on forever, because from those we started getting other styles of split levels, which really mapped out that mid-century modern look and aesthetic, which a lot of current home builders are still using. I know one of my favorite home builds out there is a Fisher home. It's called the Blair, and it's a 5-level home. It's a bunch of half levels kind of stacked next to each other, and it's a phenomenal home. It's one of my favorite home designs out there. I really think that we owe a lot to them, not only as a nation, but as real estate agents and people that just really enjoy architecture. We've spawned a lot of great things from bi-level homes. So they had some really great features. They were really good with natural lighting. They were great in these hilly neighborhoods that were coming around, especially in, like, if you get into the west side of Cincinnati, it's extremely hilly. And they were very prominent there. I think that we owe a lot to bi-level homes. So I think next time I have a client that says, I don't ever want to see a bi-level home, I can't stand them, I'm just going to send them this podcast and see what they think after learning a little bit about them. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Bricks and Stories, our very first episode. Hopefully many more to come. And I hope that you can see that bi-levels are more than just a practical design. They're part of history. They're part of what helped shape this great nation. And they're really a testament to the creativity and ingenuity of the mid-century architects, and what the challenges they faced, and the way they responded and answered was, it's gotten so many people into home ownership that I tip my hat to you, sirs. If you're a first-time buyer or someone looking for a home with character and potential, please, please, please don't overlook the bi-level. And if you're interested in learning more about homes like these or exploring what's available in your area, I'd love to help. You can reach me at 513-849-9715 or follow me on social media at The Doer Difference. As always, stay curious about the places we live and the stories they tell. I'll see you next time for another deep dive into the homes and neighborhoods that make our lives so special.